Peace. This is the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. One man, 18. So, this is just a quick hit because I was doing some thinking as I was running and getting some work done yesterday. And my brother has texted me something. And I was, meditating on the idea and rolling it around in my head. And I came up with something that I felt like was worth sharing, right? And as a man, I think it's important to learn to be, a one man 18. So he's saying, first of all, for y'all young folks that might not know what the A-Team is. A-Team was the 80s, what they call that, action, I don't know if it's action, comedy, dramedy, I don't know what the right term is. But focus on a 4-man team. It was brother B.A. Baracus, who was, essentially the muscle, but also a lot of the hard technical trade skills, the welding, the fabrication, fine-tuned skills that, despite the, although obviously his character operated within sort of the trope of the big black man, he was also, though, highly skilled, and he was also kind, despite what, would be assumed about him by the mohawk and the big chains and all that. The brains, Hannibal, right? Hannibal, sort of the chess master, the architect, who laid the plans. A lot of times, sometimes did the reassuring, the wisdom of the group, as he was the elder, the obvious visual elder and the highest ranking amongst them. The face, which is the charisma, the smooth talking, the working with the subtleties aspect of the team, and Murdoch, who was like sort of the crazy man, the wild card. You don't know what's gonna happen. But also he got that wealth, that ability to surprise, to open up things, do things in ways that you didn't see coming, because of the way he looked at the world differently, right? Because some would say he was insane or whatever. That was sort of the context of the show, was that, he had maybe like PTSD, and that's what we would say now. He had PTSD, and that he was, at times, put in mental health housing because he wasn't safe. But the reality, as I see it, was he just wanted to see the world differently, right? And that difference sometimes allowed him to operate differently and do things differently. So, as I was going through some sciences and drawing up some things that, like I said, I was sharing with a couple of my brothers, the thought came to me, thing within the application of sometimes what you need to do to get things done to be effective is to see the reality and operate to make things come into creation as your own one man 18, right? You gotta be the muscle. You gotta go out here and you might have to build the complex before it can be real. You gotta think out and plan and map the strategy. You may have to work the human connections to get the job done, and then you gotta have that creativity and that openness to make changes, to do things different ways, to reach out in different situations and ciphers so that you can be effective. Right? That is the nature of a king. That's the nature of one who looks to be in charge, or to run something or create something, or be the one who is held responsible for that creation, is to operate as if you're going to have to do this all by yourself. Not meaning that you will not prepare or expect the support of others, but that you have a plan and can trust that you can get it done on your own. If you find your space and find your context. Now, with all that, right, everybody's not going to be physically as strong, and some you may not know, physical height and dimensions are not necessarily in a direct correlation to physical strength, right? There's some, there's some short, small brothers, apparently small brothers out here that'll tear you in half like a phone book at a, World Trade Fair, back in the day, spectacle. Break you in half. There's some big dudes that ain't about that fighting life. And vice versa, though. There's also some big dudes that's like, hey, man, I'm a big dude. I'll squash you like a bug. I have no, please don't make me angry. Whatever the case may be, the muscle is not just this imposing thing, but it's also the perseverance, the know-how to make something into something else if you need to. Having the brains or being the sort of the planner, the vision, like, developing the project view, so to speak, of what needs to get done in your life, personally, professionally, otherwise. That requires inputs. It doesn't. You just can't. Just sit there and go, well, I already know what I need to do, so I'm just going to do what I always do. No, you got to be studying. You got to study people. You got to study circumstance, systems. What is the things that are most prevalent and relevant to what you're trying to work on. The face. Everybody, some will tell you that, and to a degree, that there's a thing about charisma that sometimes some people just got more of it than others for whatever reason. However, the maintenance of that is not it's learning not just to be sort of this leech that uses your charm to convince people to do stuff they don't want to do, but actually developing a sense of how do I connect with people on a high level? How do I build trust? How do I build, real connections? What I'm saying? How do I show empathy? How do I open up and listen and hear what other people are saying? See, that's the root behind charisma. So you got to work the hell out of whatever charisma you got. Some of y'all ain't that charismatic, but that's all right, man. You work what you got. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, the wild card, man, being ready for the unexpected and being comfortable with seeing perspectives that may operate outside of what you understand, or learning how to sit in this position and say, wait a minute, let me digest and eat up a little bit of this before I make these final judgments about what it is or what it isn't. So, in any event, thought I needed to share that. It was one more thing to close out the month, and next month we look to be more productive. So much going on in my life that I had to, respect life on life terms and be a little slower in the production of these works, but more to come. All right, with that. This has been the Ask Your Old Head podcast with Justice Raji. Peace.